Now, this is a session about game thinking and gamification, which means that we're all going to stand up and play a game. Right, put all your stuff down. Now, playing a game with a lot of people in a short period of time and make sure we get through the 25 minutes. We're going to play a very simple game, and I think you're all aware of what it is. It's rock, paper, scissors. Now, I want you to turn to a person next to you, so you form a pair, right? Now, as with every game, there's always rules to the game. The best, before we start, see, this is what games do, isn't that beautiful? Okay, rules of play. Best of 3 games win, right? And as we know, rock beats scissors, paper beats rock, and scissors beat paper. Now, the first person out of each pair that wins goes, yes! Okay? Can we practice the yes? Yes! Okay. Ready, set, go. That's a 3. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Give yourselves a big clap. Okay. Good stuff. Now, apart from having a lot of fun, this is what's happening to your brain. So there's method in the madness here. Am I in the way? No. So what's happening here is that through interactive play, we've had all sorts of stuff happening in our neural and hormonal systems. Dopamine levels, serotonin levels, they're all sort of causing this amazing cocktail. Competitive elements causes testosterone to come into your system. That's what your brain looks like in interactive play. And it's I'll spare you the Latin. So, but basically the areas of the brain that's being stimulated are learning, processing and emotion, sensory, alertness, spatial navigation and long-term memory. So what is actually happening is that through gameplay, apart from having fun, fun's obviously very important because it's engaging, but it does stuff to your brain and does stuff to your system that helps you learn, helps you engage, and this is the stuff that we're harnessing in business now, looking at how do we engage people in doing stuff that they enjoy but actually produces better outcomes for business. And just incidentally, these are scans of the brains of young cancer sufferers, about sort of teenagers, that are that usually they give up the fight very easily. When you're very young, you feel like you're not going to combat cancer. A game was developed by Stanford University called Remission, and through playing this game, it changed their behaviour patterns, saying that if they played the role of the key character in the game, she flies through the bloodstream, zapping all the cancer cells. After playing this game, after a sustained period of time, their behaviours changed, their attitudes changed. They believed they could beat their cancer. So this is one positive aspect in terms of used in healthcare of how playing the game encourages you. It gives you that mastery, autonomy, the purpose out of what you're actually doing to actually change those behaviours for the good. And we'll explore these things during the session about how we can use that for business. So gamification, there's sort of a standard definitions, but get the business stuff over and done with. Use of game elements in non-game contexts. So it's not a game that you're playing for entertainment purposes, but it's been used in a business context or in a health or social context as well. It's actually a strategic management tool. At the moment, it's been hijacked by marketers and advertising. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but what it is, it's undersold its value as a very holistic and a very sort of fundamental tool for what it is to be human. It facilitates engagement, participation, as we sort of experienced before, and creativity and innovation, which is the focus that I'd like to use. Now, you had that buzz in that first sort of couple of minutes. Your testosterone levels and your dopamine levels are going to start to subside a little bit. Can you feel that? Okay, so if I was a great game developer, I'd get you up to do another activity, but we'd be here for hours. So, so what you should do, because this is a reference point for us, be mindful of what's happening in your system as well, because as that's starting to go down, a game developer would intervene with another activity to keep those levels up. Okay, so in game design, we have what's called a magic circle. And in this magic circle is where we come and play and enjoy and experiment. Now, magic circles are also used as playgrounds, as laboratories, as boardrooms. So what happens when we're designing the human experience, we're designing a safe place for people to come together, to collaborate, to enjoy and to learn. And the 4 aspects of here, and these 4 aspects of game design will then be used to draw comparisons to how they actually align with more modern strategic business thinking. So we're looking at enabling participation by engaging people. We're creating experiences for people, so we're trying to evoke emotion and commitment. We're creating a possibility space, so there's possibilities to do endless things. It's not just restricted to small areas or a small area that's you've been sort of assigned to in life. You can be anything you want to be, a dragon slayer, a CEO of a company, whatever the play is about. And it's also about connections, facilitating community between people, because humans are social beings, and in the era of collaboration and social change, we can see it happening in all aspects of our lives. The rise of social media, games are highly social activities. So this is the kind of stuff that we're bringing together to actually form a much more holistic experience and engaging in other aspects of our lives outside of the play space. So why is this important? Is it just like a feel-good thing? Is it another fad? Not necessarily the case. It's game over for our current business models. We've seen very complex and very important structural changes that are happening in our business and our economy that's making to start us to think that what we're currently doing has to change, because we're just going to produce the same results over and over again. Now, I've got a whole series of scary statistic slides to give an indication of the kinds of work that I'd been working with as a management consultant that made me say, okay, we've got to do something very differently. Townsperrin a couple of years ago, and there's been other companies that have done exactly the same thing, did a massive international study, 90 countries, hundreds of thousands of employees around the world. And what they found is a consistent finding that is a very scary number. The average workplace only has 20% of its staff actively engaged on the job. You have 40% that are enrolled but not committed, like, yeah, it's not like my job, it's no big deal, I'd rather be doing something else. The scariest one is that 40% are actively disengaged, which means I hate my job. Now, in an era of very serious and complex business problems, if you only have 20% of your staff really interested in innovation and solving problems, you're not going to get very far. Next slide of scary numbers. So you might say, well, so people aren't engaged, what does that mean? The same study showed that workplaces with higher than average levels of engagement far exceeded financial performance of those companies that had lower than average engagement levels. So engagement is a crucial thing. It's, of course, all your other IT systems and your policies and your strategies are also very important, but it's your staff that is the very basis of wealth creation for your companies and also development for our communities as well. The last of the scary slides is looking at long-term declines in invested capital. Deloitte Centre for the Edge in 2010 did an international study that showed since 1965 we've had a very steady decline in return on invested capital. And also work done by Foster & Kaplan on S&P 500 showed that the longevity of companies on average, say 1958 was 75 years, and now that's declined to a mere 15 years in 2012. So we're looking at sort of very important systemic changes on the market. Shift has happened. So how do we actually adapt to these changes and find out exactly what they mean? Any MBA grads in here? Yeah, no. Former, a bit of a self-help group at some stage. The McKinsey 6S of management was a really important tool, and it actually permeated through every subject in an MBA class. So looking at the 6 S's of business, which are sort of quite sound. But what we're trying to do is that using those very fundamentals of traditional business design and reframing it as a game thinking approach. And a game thinking approach is just building engagement and motivation into everything that we do. Because the number one job of a game designer is engagement. Whereas all the systems that have been designed in traditional business sense have all been designed around efficiency and throughput, and engagement comes, last in that list. So by looking at systems, from a traditional business sense, what we need to do is just reinvent the language here, because once we start to change the language, our thought processes change and our actions change as well. So rather than think systems, think enabling participation. How do we engage people, regardless of what the technology may look like? Instead of thinking structures and hierarchies, think of creating experiences for people by evoking emotion participation. Instead of thinking strategy and skills, think of creating possibility spaces in terms of how we adapt and renewing and reinventing those possibility spaces as being something other than they already are. And the last one, staff and style. And style actually means culture, but culture's not up there because it doesn't start with an S. So, with facilitating community and connecting with people, this is what we're trying to do. It's creating connections with people. And that probably sort of sounds, well, that sounds okay. However, what does it actually mean? Now, I'll give you some amazing examples of where the best cases of gamification and game thinking has been used in industry. So basically what we're looking at is how do we engage, how do we evoke, how do we adapt, and how do we connect? And we're talking about, it's basically human-centred design. And with that comes a whole lot of scientific background on neuroscience, on behavioural science, on cognitive sciences as well. It's not just fun and games of game design, it's actually much deeper than that, because game designers have been cognitive scientists and behavioural scientists for a long, long time. And what games are, they're patterns of social patterns and human interactions. So games just reflect how humans like to interact. So it's nothing new, it's just been kept to one side. All we're trying to do is adapt those to build more human-centred design business systems. I'm just going to have a little sip of water. Has anyone heard of the game Folded? Oh, excellent. That's good. When some people, everyone's heard of it, it's a bit of a challenge to engage. So Folded is a game that was developed by the University of Washington. For 15 years, it had been struggling with a problem of understanding and mapping the protein properties of one of the enzymes of the flu virus. So for 15 years, I thought, we're not getting anywhere very fast. And what's this thing called games and gamification? How can we engage people in problem solving outside the magic circle of the laboratory? How do we sort of extend beyond that? So by looking at a game strategy, but also combining that with a collaboration strategy and a digital strategy, it's a magic mix. Look, they designed a game called Folded, and they said, let's open it up to the public. Let's use an open innovation model here, engage people with games, and let's see what citizen science comes up with. 240,000 people around the world enrolled to play. Now, they're not necessarily scientists or students of scientists. They were designers, they were game designers, they were engineers, people from within the scientific community, but outside of it as well. Anyone who loved puzzle games and how just the gameplay was built around how the different ways that you can fold these enzymes. And the more we understand the mapping of the properties of these enzymes, we can therefore develop predictive models, and that goes towards solving quite important scientific problems. 240,000 people within 10 days solved the problem that the university had been struggling with for 15 years. So engaging people through gameplay, not saying, sit down in this laboratory and solve this particular problem. You opened it up, you redefined the experience, you enabled participation, and you got people thinking from outside of the traditional ways of thinking about science to combine them into problem solving. And they've been going for 4 years now, and they've been making a lot of amazing progress. Another one about evoking or creating experiences, and this sort of speaks to marketing and also business development as well. This is about developing deeper customer relationships. Jay-Z, anyone like his music? American rapper, yeah, heard the hum there, that's good. Well, anyway, Jay-Z 2 years ago wrote his memoirs, but he said to himself, I know the book will be a bestseller. So he's a multimillionaire, so another few million sort of didn't make much of a difference to him. Now Jay-Z grew up on the streets of New York, on the wrong side of town, that kind of stuff. So he had a bit of a colourful life before he actually got to be a mega rock star. So he said, so rather than, and in that space, and because of the community that he grew up with and was still loyal to, and they're the basis of his main fan base, he said, they're already going to buy the book, they mightn't read it, but what I want them to do is I don't want them to read about my life, I want them to experience my life. So they developed a scavenger hunt across the city of New York. Now it's a digital game, so people can play online and can play offline as well. So you in geolocation, using big maps, people played the game to unfold the mystery of this book. 240 pages of his book were spread throughout New York, and as you can see, there's 2 of these pages over the rooftop of a warehouse that he used to hang out in. So it was beautifully done, it was engaging, it was inspiring. So they had other pages down the side of a cars parked in an alley, on a billiard table where he used to play pool, on a train station, in a frame on the wall. So it was quite, you go to the location where the geolocation took you to, but you had to, the process of discovery, find out exactly where it was. So the book would turn out to be a bestseller, but the momentum it created, the mystery and the buzz and the hype it created, because these people understood more about his life, about his music. So that made them become even more loyal followers. So it was about building that closer relationship with the customer, and the buzz it created and everything was obviously sort of a benefit as well. But it's how do we deepen those connections with people? Now, the next one, connecting or facilitating community. And this is a great example of redefining the customer and your services. The New York Public Library had been tracking for a long time its disappointment how the younger generation was not interested in libraries anymore. They felt that they had everything they needed online. Why would they need to go into the library? Because it's old and musty and it looks like a prison, all this kind of stuff. So they said, how do we redefine the relationship between a traditional library, an amazing one as it is, and youth? How do we get them to come into the library? So they developed another scavenger hunt, but they targeted their market beautifully, because they said, okay, everyone comes in at 8 o'clock at night. The scavenger hunt, you bring in your digital device, and it'll be done, you'll be searching through the library at night with torches, and it ends 7 o'clock the next morning. So by creating this engaging experience, these kids went into the library, the mystery and the excitement and all the different ways they engaged people with playing those games. They found things in the books, on the shelves, in the exhibits, in the archives, amazing things that they would never have ordinarily discovered before. So in the process of a game, and a very mysterious, by torchlight and all this kind of stuff, they just rediscovered a library and developed a great love for it. They tracked the behaviour of these players over a 12-month period, and most of them had gone back several times, bringing their friends and family to show them what they had discovered. So once again, you're redefining what is a library, who are our customers, and how do we develop a different relationship with them so they can see what we have through a different lens. Mindful of time. This is one of my favourite ones. So creating a new possibility space. The city of Stockholm had, like most cities around the world, had serious problems with speeding drivers. No matter how many times they raised the fines, drivers were still speeding and running red lights and all this kind of stuff. So they said, okay, let's be more playful with this, because the more punitive we are, it has no impact on how people are responding to us. So they developed a game of it. So the camera lights had photographed everyone's number plates as they were going through the lights or stopping at the lights, but you were also photographed if you were driving below the speed limit. And if you were photographed driving below the speed limit, your number plate went into a lottery to win the prize of everyone who had paid fines for increasing. So it's like, what is the problem here? So why are we sort of taking the compliance approach all the time? Why don't we just turn that around and create a new, different experience and redefine the kinds of behaviours? And usually in game design, we only reward positive behaviours. So what happened to the speed limits? They declined. Because people were playing a game. So they thought, okay, so, of course there's a reward involved, but it became a bit of a sport, a bit of a community thing as well. So that just sort of redefined the relationship between the city and motorists and each other. 7 minutes, wow. Okay, now the game, how many are playing the Amplify game? Okay, so once again, this is talking about connection and engaging. So we have about 900 players so far, 9,000 touch points. touch points so far. So what we have here, we're engaging with a wider community that's outside of this room. They're out playing, they're playing online, they're playing in Melbourne, they're playing from all the different branches. So we're connecting with them. So even if you can't be here in the one space, they earn points for different activities. They collect badges for different activities, and there's a winner, and there's the kind of behaviours that we're trying to encourage. We're encouraging participation and connection with each other. Final example is using games such as World of Warcraft, where you've got people playing guilds, and the schools use this and businesses use this as well, learning about teamwork, learning about economics and resource allocation by putting yourself in the safe space of a virtual world and how we actually engage in problem solving without the traditional boundaries that we've put ourselves in other school or business environments. Now, the key success factors with all these examples were not just the points and the badges and the leaderboards at all. It was about, we were keeping it real. It was about meaning, about learning, about engaging, purpose and connection. And these are the things that are fundamental drivers for people. Now, what does this mean for financial services and wealth management? Now, research and reading is my thing. If anyone is on Twitter, I loaded my tweet stream with all these different examples of the different tools that are used by financial services and wealth management. None of them were worthy of this presentation because they were still at early stages yet. Like, it's fantastic to see, and I've got a list of some of the organisations there. It's a great start, but what we're doing here is tweaking, and it's not disruptive. Because currently how it's being used, there are early experiments at this stage. They're using games and simulations, most of it for staff training, customer orientation, and targeting the youth market as well, which is lovely. Like, any action is good action because we're experimenting, we're iterating, and we're learning from how do we use gamification in these particular areas. But there's a bigger question here. What does this actually mean in terms of looking at your customer experience and your business model? How is all that sort of moving and shaking? I do a lot of work with startups, and I've been to so many pitches about financial services apps. I've been through so many, I've invested in some, and I did a search last night and I got over 1 billion hits for finance apps. With a lot of these that I've looked at, a lot of them have been gamified in some way. Real-time feedback loops, point systems, or using some of the elements of gamification to keep people connected with what's happening in their finances. But to me, that there's a bigger question, there's bigger signals here, and it's, you know, like most disruptions, they're lurking in these weak signals. So I think looking at, you know, what are customers looking for in all these apps? Control, involvement, a safe space to ask the dumb questions, to experiment with different ways of managing their wealth, and how they're spending and investing. These are the kinds of things that are happening in these weak signals, or in those sort of 1 billion hits for this area. So I'd say there's something happening out there, and we probably sort of need to sort of think a little bit more innovatively about how we understand what's happening there and how we experiment with how we respond to that. And my advice, I think this is my last slide, advice would be don't linger on the current industry examples, particularly in financial services and wealth management, because I think there's good things to be learned from that, but you probably need to move beyond. And I think from the speakers that I've heard the last few days, and I know you've got lined up for the next few days, they're encouraging you to go out there, to experiment, to think big, and to test and iterate a lot of these sort of big, potentially disruptive stuff that's happening. So go outside of that. Some of the examples that I gave you, they actually have much deeper implications and meaning about how we respond to change and how we reinvent our business models and our experiences that you can take forward from here. And also look at a seamless gamification strategy. Gamification on its own doesn't do a lot. It needs to be integrated with your overall business strategy, particularly with the digital, mobile and social strategy, because they all relate to each other. They all sort of go hand in hand. I think that's my key question to you is that, from what you've learned, I know it's only been a brief, rushed session, what is your game plan? So think about what's happening and how you would actually respond to that. And don't forget to play. Thank you.